Moloch is a movie that came out of the Netherlands, so there's a lot of Dutch in it. Although, weirdly enough, there is also a lot of English in it. It's about a woman who goes through a somewhat traumatic experience as a child, and then later on in life, she has to go back to this family home where her parents now are at the edge of a peat moss, and things sort of start happening to her that sort of recall those earlier traumatic issues, and then it's her trying to figure out what exactly is going on. This movie was I really enjoyed this movie because it reminded me of a bit of a throwback movie to like some of the 70s horror movies. One of the things I really like about the old 70s horror movies that I really think that they've gotten away from here in this country that I think they still do a really good job of overseas is, they cast people that fit really well within the world that their movie is set in. I feel like we did that a lot better in the 70s, where the people that were starring in the movies were not models. They were, I mean, I know we do that for a lot of other stuff, but I feel like horror movies over the last 30 years or so, probably, I assume it's because of, kind of the excess that happened in the 80s when it was the slasher movies and you had a lot of beautiful people and there was a lot of TNA and this sort of thing. And so it sort of went in that direction so that now horror movies, everyone who's cast, you look like James Wan movies, and everyone who's cast in it, they're gorgeous people. And, back in the 70s when you had movies like Omen and Exorcist and Changeling and, these types of films, they cast they were actors and some were famous actors, but they sort of fit within the world of the movie. They looked like normal people to a degree. And that's something I think we've gotten a little bit away from here in this country. But what I find overseas is they kind of still do that. And this is no exception. I mean, the lead actress in this obviously is a very attractive woman, but she fits very well into the world around her. Her parents look like people who grew up in a rural area of the Netherlands. Her kind of love interest, who plays a scientist or a detective, I couldn't quite figure out exactly what he is, but he looks like a sort of normal, everyday kind of guy, as do the other people around her. And so I really think that is a big attribute in kind of bringing you into this world and giving you a bit of a voyeuristic view of kind of what's going around the characters. And I think that helps as, especially in a horror movie where you're dealing with things like ghosts or spirits or supernatural things, you want to try and make that line of suspension of disbelief. You want that to be as thin as possible. And so I think one of the things this movie does really well is everything sort of fits within that world, and it all feels very natural. And it did feel to me like it was almost a 70s movie. But I highly recommend the movie. There's a few too many jump scares for my taste. I'm not a giant fan of jump scares, but it really does a good job of sort of setting its atmosphere, setting itself, utilizing atmosphere and mood to kind of drive the story. There's a lot of good character development. There's a lot of good interactions between different people. And so I think it does a really good job of essentially taking a small story that has some decent twists and turns and kind of bringing you along for the ride. Like I said, it really felt like an old kind of throwback horror movie. I enjoyed it a lot. A couple too many jump scares were the only thing that really bummed me out a bit. There's some CGI in it, but it's not too bad. Some of the supernatural stuff with the CGI, it's not too bad. But I do think they were able to kind of stick the landing on this, which to me, horror movies, one of the biggest problems I find is the third act kind of falls apart. But I think they really kind of did a good job with this one, start to finish. I highly recommend it. I would give this one a B plus as far as horror movies. Definitely check it out if you get a chance. All right.